Hey everybody, it's Mike here. I thought it would be interesting since a lot of the conference is centered around some of the ideas in the book and these different applications of the ideas in the book. I thought it might be interesting to just tell you about the book real quick. What I want to do is share with you sort of the big ideas that come from the book. This is in the genre, they call it the big idea nonfiction book. And the key to any big idea nonfiction book is that there's a big idea, but there's also a narrative that sort of pulls you through. Obviously, for this purpose, I'm going to try to restrict the narrative as much as I can so that we can focus on actually what the book is about. These ideas that come from the book sort of are at the core of a lot of the things that we're talking about during this event. Hopefully, giving you this basis, this foundation of the core ideas from the book will help you to understand what's going on in the event. And obviously, if you want to get the book and hear the story, read the story as well, get to know what happened and how these ideas developed, and dig a little deeper into them, you certainly can. It's over on Amazon. If you go to lawyerforward.com, there's a link to it. So let me start. The main thing, the big bad guy, anytime you've got one of these narratives, these stories, you got to have a bad guy in the book. And in this book, it's the capital C churn. It's the business model that we've been using, which is it's all about your next hour. And in the beginning of the book, I sort of map out how this bad guy operates on us, what it does to us as lawyers. The story starts out with a lawyer that was really broken down, and I realized at the beginning of the story I didn't want to operate like that. And so it's me on a journey to figure out how to get out of these four factors that I mentioned that are really harming the industry. Silos have to do with us being by ourselves, right? It's complicated because silos are actually very beneficial according to network science, which we'll talk about later. The idea of having a bunch of nerds in a room really digging deep around a problem, but that's not really how we operate. The model that I explained in the beginning, there's a really cool story about Thomas Edison and how Paul Cravath got the system, the Cravath system, from Thomas Edison. It really is each of us as individuals, silos of one, not passing on generational knowledge, not sharing present knowledge, not using the best techniques for building knowledge. Well, the issue with that is stagnation. A lot of the advice that we get right now has to do with, reducing ourselves and turning ourselves into systems and routinizing everything we do. Really cool for the purpose of efficiency, but we're not in an efficiency economy. We're in an innovation economy, a point where doing the wrong things faster doesn't really help anybody. We're incredibly efficient. I know that sounds crazy for lawyers, especially for me, who tries to teach lawyers to get their flow to work better in cases. But as workers, we can get a lot of tasks done in a day. Our productivity is really high. And so what happens with not being creative, with taking work that makes it so we're very routine, our brains actually shrink. And there's research in the book that describes this. Whereas when we do creative work, our brains grow, even as adults. It's a really interesting issue that's driving a lot of the worst results for doctors. I show research that, the doctors' results get worse over time. Lawyers, we don't test ourselves, obviously, over time for competency, probably because we write the rules, but I suspect that the data would show about the same. Distrust has to do with consumers, right? They don't, I don't have to tell you guys, they don't like us. There's plenty of studies that show we don't have a lot of respect as professionals go. And that is also, I think, a result of the way we practice this model of the next hour. We're only as good as the next hour. And finally, tradition. One of the things that really hurts us is we get locked into these traditions. I give the example in the book of these science fiction stories, these Generation Starship stories, like WALL-E, if you've ever seen the movie, that the ship takes off and the passengers forget why they're there, and some of the passengers become the power that locks everybody inside. That's us, right? A lot of the levers in the legal industry are being used to keep things the same, and it's just perpetuating these harms of the churn. So I run through sort of the business model pieces that transition off of that. So the churn is sort of this big picture system that's driving us and keeping us locked in. The question then is how we monetize it. I specifically mentioned that clients expect both accessibility and expertise, and this is a problem because those two goods are contrary to each other. You cannot, no matter what you tell yourself, you cannot do deep work with a bunch of interruptions. I know this as a writer. It's impossible. We all know this right now because our kids are busting into our offices over and over again. That code switching, that thing of having to switch tasks has costs every time. So the question is, how do we get clients both of those things, both the accessibility and the expertise? The model doesn't like that. The other issue with the way we teach the model, especially to solo attorneys, I've gone to countless legal conferences where people have said, you're all entrepreneurs. That's always sort of bugged me because, yes, in the sense that, we're taking a risk by owning a business, but it's not a terribly high risk in the sense that, it's risky just because of the way this is legislated because we can't, claim our student loans in bankruptcy, and those loans have gotten crazy. But historically, this was not a risky job. It was a professional job. The whole point why parents, told kids you should grow up to be a professional is because it's a sure path. There wasn't a ton of risk. So what is it that makes us entrepreneurial? Are we building to scale? Are we building new products, going into new markets or creating new markets? None of those things really seem to be true about most of the solo lawyers that I know. And then the other kind of practitioner, the other kind of person who works in this environment is the freelancer if you're a solo. So you're sort of still focusing on the work, but doing it for somebody else. You're not going and getting the clients, but you're doing the legal work. You're doing the tasks. And again, we're encouraged to be both. We're told that we're supposed to be both the solopreneur and the freelancer, both the decider and the artist. These things just don't work together very well. And so what I urge is for lawyers to recognize that across this spectrum of accessibility and growth and service, and then on the other side, there's this focus, these freelancers that are experts, to pick one of these two roles. And I talk through the book about how that plays out. The point is, if you just want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a deep expert, then you can do that. The secret is positioning. And we'll talk about, in this case, horizontal positioning. So this is complicated, but what I want you to do is to imagine an x-axis of people, right? It's all different kinds of people. And then your y-axis is different kinds of problems, right? So each is an individual problem. So an expert, they don't do vertical. They don't do a type of audience. What an expert does is a type of problem. And they don't care where that problem comes up. It might come up in a legal case. It might come up in a legislative issue. Maybe you're writing, maybe you're consulting, maybe you're teaching. But to think of the business more like a consultancy, that positioning is super important. What is the problem that you want to solve? Knowing stuff is not enough, right? Capital K knowledge, we used to break it up and just hand it out to people. That doesn't work anymore. The knowledge is too big. If you read, there's a book called Too Big to Know that's about this. That's really, really good. It's not about knowledge anymore, right? Expertise is about focus on a problem and delivering for people. The issue is to pick your problem, right? The other things that come up are these considerations of time. I'm not a fan of the billable hour. I don't like that. I don't think it's really tied to what consumers want. I think it creates a lot of strange incentives and inefficiencies, but you should still spend most of your time being an expert if that's your focus. You should get teams around you to make it so you have no interruptions, right? And that what you create in terms of expertise can be scaled and grown for your company. And that's the last thing I would talk about on this idea of the expert freelancer is what exactly expertise is, because it's not data, right? It's not knowledge, it's insights. And if you read David Baker's book, The Business of Expertise, he says, what an expert does is by their positioning, they really narrow their focus. And so now they start to see the problem in lots of contexts. And when they see that problem in lots of contexts, they start to pull out insights. They see truths that nobody else has seen. Well, now you grow by capturing those insights and sharing them in different ways. You should have a team somehow supporting you, whether you build it yourself or you're networking with other people. You need to be doing your expert work. The other type is the audience building solopreneur that I talk about. This person focuses on the method of entrepreneurship. It's about growth. It's about scale. The way Seth Godin put it is where an expert freelancer is making stuff, the audience building solopreneur is making decisions. These people are managing people, right? They're growing. Scale is fundamental to this model. They are solutions engines. And what's really important for the audience building solopreneur is that they recognize those solutions are initially driven by the clients. What is their demand? What is their need? Because you've got a vertical positioning. You are helping a kind of person across multiple problems. Now, of course, you don't have to do anything, just anything that your clients or this audience you're trying to serve tells you to do. If somebody calls you up and tells you, hey, I'm in your audience and I want to move nuclear waste, you have to move, you don't have to do that, right? You can still make those decisions, but it should focus on the kind of person, not the kind of problem. You are a solutions engine for your people. The key to this is authority. Authority is different than expertise. I talk about the two definitions in the book. Expertise has to do with trying. It's one who tried is the root. It's experiencing things over and over to find the insights, find the patterns. Authority is different. Authority has to do with creating trust, fostering trust. And so these activities, you're doing a lot of exposure. You're doing a lot of, what I do, right? The kind of where I consider myself an audience builder. I am talking to you right now. I do a lot of teaching, a lot of content. I'm bringing the wisdom of experts into my authorship, right? To make it accessible to my people, right? I'm doing that work. So it's a slightly different business model, and I really think the focus is going to make a huge difference in how you're able to be productive. But again, the issue is clients want both. You can't build just an audience-focused business and expect legal clients to be happy. You can't build just an expertise-focused business and expect clients to be happy. So what do we do? I wanted to talk about networks. This is at the core of the book. This is the big idea. This comes from my background in logistics pre-law. It has to do with once you have specialized, whether in expertise or in building audience, the key is to collaborate. I talk a lot in the book about social capital, about what this looks like. Instead of building a business on, cash flow, think about social cash flow, right? Social capital. How are you connecting with other people? In my nerdy world, we talk about supply chains. The idea is all of these pieces that come together to deliver for the end client. There's a great story in there about this guy who decided to build an artisan toaster because he thought it would be better than using these complex supply chains. And spoiler alert, he spent like $2,300, took him a year, and it didn't work. It melted in the end. It is strange to think, but supply chains are actually more efficient when you've got all the right people doing the right things. Being one person doing it all just doesn't work. The key here is design. So for that solopreneur business, for the business that's connecting to audience and designing solutions, those design competencies are fundamental to that work. You are heading up the connection of experts for the purpose of delivering for a kind of person. Those experts have a different job. They're supposed to be working hard. Again, they're developing their expertise out loud. They're working out loud. But their job is not to go find a bunch of product design. That is the job of somebody else in the network. And it's key to deliver for both goods for the clients, to deliver both of those goods to clients of accessibility and expertise, that these people connect. And of course, strategy, I talk about a strategic supply chain is once you develop this network of people who can help solve this problem, you can do it again and again and again, right? I give the example all the time of Jess Birkin, who did this. She went and her customers, her clients kept asking her for employee manuals, and she had no idea how to do it. She created a team and law clerk to be able to deliver it once, and then guess what? Every time that task came, she just went back to that team. She didn't have to know all of that stuff herself. She could develop that strategic supply chain, and that became an asset for her business. The 4 competencies that I talk about for the legal supply chain manager, this person who's in this design function, are there: design, source, build, and deliver. Real quick, Design has to do with how you create the solutions. How do you craft the solutions? These are crucial competencies. Sourcing has to do with, all right, once I've created the workflow for this solution to this problem for my audience, how do I source it? Where do I find the experts? Where do I find the tools? Where do I find the systems? That person really has to understand how to do that. Build has to do with quality control. What are you doing to checklist and make sure that the work is coming out the way you want it to with a quality experience? And that's what Deliver is about. It's about the value chain piece, the bigger picture. What is the experience of the user? If you are going to be the audience building solopreneur, you have to have someone in your circle who is doing the work of these 4 competencies. All right, finally, I wanted to talk about people who have accidentally or on purpose figured this out. These are friends of mine, all of them that have done a great job doing this. Casey Flaherty is an expert. Early on in his practice, he really focused on technology pieces and on procurement issues with legal services. And now he's at Baker McKenzie. He runs a whole department. It was weird for a long time for Casey. And that's one of the things about, these paths of letting your freak flag fly and identifying your specialty. It takes a while. And Casey was really in a weird spot for quite a while, building this exposure and this brand as an expert, but he just kept focusing because that's what he does. He focuses on a problem and he does it out loud. Tracy, she was a practitioner of family law. She was just doing sort of general family law issues, and it didn't work out for her. She's told this story many times. She was actually disbarred. She couldn't figure out how to function in that business model, in the churn. And so one day she just said, I'm not going to do it anymore, right? And that was a hard road, but she got to that point and she focuses on just on mediations. That's her list of products. She does these mediations, but she is an excellent audience builder. She did the Hell on Heels hashtag. She found people who fit. She found a kind of person. It was this kind of lawyer that was looking for her kind of personality. She created authority, right? Not expertise. She's not going around nerding about some very, narrow problem that people are seeing in different contexts. She offered a solution and she built authority. Carolyn Elephant, she is more focused on a problem, right? She does these pipeline issues. She specialized in her practice, focused on being an expert in this area very early, and she's able to compete with large firms who have much bigger resources because she's so focused. She can really deliver great insights because she's doing this pattern matching. And then Jess, who I mentioned before, she's got this positioning where her service is to nonprofits in Minnesota. That is an audience. That's a kind of person. And as she runs into different problems along that vertical, right, she helps in different ways. Not everything they say, but she builds the teams that are necessary for her to deliver well for her people. So there's hope in that. People are doing it. The last thing that I just wanted to mention is you can get the book. Again, it's on Amazon. Easy to get to. If you go to the homepage of Lawyer Forward, there's a link out to it. If you do get it, reviews are always appreciated. And let me know that you got it. And if you have any ideas or questions or thoughts, I am happy to ping back and forth and think about how this might work for your particular context. I have said many times before, if you are struggling financially, this is a weird time. If you're having a hard time, just shoot me an email, Mike@LawyerForward. I'll send you a free PDF copy. Hopefully that is helpful to you as you guys move forward in this conference and in thinking about whether the book was right for you. Please let me know if you have any questions, ideas. I look forward to keeping on talking about this stuff with all of you. Thank you.